encourage everyone, if you have dreams, don't give up on them, even though we're going through a crazy time. And then obviously grounding, the water is the dream, holding the dream and not letting the emotional body convince you something's wrong. Ground every day in the earth. Take off your shoes. Make sure you're eating healthy food. Make sure your house is clean. If you're a mess, it's a symbol. Take responsibility for the details. Go back and finish what you didn't finish. You're so welcome. Okay, let's jump in.
I just graduated as level 3 in your school.
You did level 3.
Yeah. So,
How
and
was
that
it?
was excellent. Oh, loved it, loved it, loved it. And I realized throughout it's more than just astrology. It's like we still meet our level through 3 group. We still
Oh, that's
meet.
so cool.
Oh yeah, and we help each other. We problem solve. We ask each other astrological questions.
Wow.
So it's really like a sisterhood. So yeah, it's an amazing thing you're doing. Okay, so I'm a Cancer sun, a Libra rising, an Aquarius moon.
That's the same as my Lady Di.
So I absolutely love the concept of astrology being your roadmap. You talk. So can you talk about that a little bit more for everyone?
It's like, really, life is like riding around in a car in the dark. And if you don't have a map and you don't have a light, you're just following the dots and you're following the other cars and you're in this movement of a collective. When there's a freedom of actually becoming aware of your position and where you want to go and how to navigate throughout your world with a dream in mind rather than just following the stream of where everyone else is going, you've got a map. But the question is, can you read the map? Like, that's the variable. So we have this map waiting in the back room, but the question is, do you actually have it so that you can use it? And that's why, to your point, it's so cool, Lori, that you took the classes, because if you don't study the language, not only are you in the dark and you don't know where you're going, but you can't translate when you get an urge or a feeling. And when you know your chart, you know the compulsions and the nature of your personality, you can work with it and say, hey, you sit down.
Right. Yes, I love that so much. So I just got back from Italy and Spain, and
Wow.
last year we went to Greece and Egypt. And what struck me so much was that all of these ancient civilizations had so much astrology in everything they did, right? So my question was like, when did that stop? And why do you think it is the way it is now?
Well, I think that was religion. Religion came in to tell us what to do and how to follow the Bible and what was going to make the acceptable back to the thing in the dark. Everybody's going to follow this way and you're all going to act this way. And if someone came up with individuality and went, no, I don't want to do it that way. I'm Libra rising and I want to do it peaceful. They're like, you be quiet. So religion really squished the whole implication of individuality being able to rule the roost. It was like, no, it was a Piscean age. Pisces is all about conformity and matching and being quiet and saying things secretly and being behind the curtain. So during that whole 2100 years, basically from when Christ was here until the Aquarian age, which was the 60s when everything changed, it was all about following. And the church was really built to teach you what to do. Like, you cannot not follow or you're going to go to hell. Well, that was enough to scare everybody. So they were like, forget about astrology, just kidding. And it was a church imposition that was really put in place, not the indigenous. You're so right. Every indigenous culture across the world spent time looking up at the stars. They didn't have television. They didn't have, the internet. And they spent a lot of time in the night without electricity looking at the stars. So they had a relationship with the eclipses and the new moons and the full moons. And that quality got left behind. So this is the exciting part about my school and what people are doing in the internet is talking about astrology again like it really matters, because it does.
It does. We went to a church in Messina, Italy, and it was the bell tower. You might know which one. The bell tower has two dials and a sphere. And one tells you what day it is. This little angel's pointing at it. The second one tells you where the planets are in the cosmos, actually, like with the signs. and the third sphere was the phase of the moon. And it worked. I couldn't believe it. I was like so excited.
Yes, I
Yeah,
totally get that. Yeah, it is real that across time, this language was completely familiar. More than that, it was the way they made decisions, the kings. And this was really built into the collective when they sat in tribes. They knew there was always somebody who was the visionary, the dreamer. Then there was one that looked at the stars. When they navigated, I live in Hawaii, when they navigated everything was done by the stars. And so it became a language that was passed on by all the different children. And now people are it's beautiful to see that, like in Hawaii, they're teaching the children again, how do you use the stars to
yeah.
navigate? So it is returning, just like you just took all 3 levels, you went to the school, you learned the language, and now you're speaking it on your terms. And this is really all my life's been about, is how do I help us return to the indigenous wisdom of the elders?
What's so cool is, so I'm a local girl. I'm born and raised in Hawaii. Yeah, and
Oh.
I've been studying Huna for decades. I have a kupuna that teaches me every month. And so I totally hear you. So what do you think that energy is in Hawaii that really, it's like it brings you closer to spirit or something? Do you feel that?
100%. I'm going the end of this week. I can't wait to go back. I call it home. I would say that, because I studied hula too for years, and I was a dancer and had a kumu, and I did the same thing.
Yeah,
It is the Hawaiian Islands, one, are the furthest away from all land on Earth. So they're not inundated with the zeitgeist, with the collective thought process. As soon as the plane lands, you're like, oh, it's quiet again. Because when you're on the mainland or anywhere in the world, there's a million people thinking at the same time, all the same thoughts. And there's not, like, Kauai is, where I live, is only 70,000 people. It's the oldest, most northern island. There's nothing else in front of us. So it's quiet. So there's one factor, is that it's the furthest away from land anywhere on Earth. The other is a population, that the population is not the same, where you're hearing and feeling the 5G. I know where to go in Hawaii where there's no 5G. We can't do that anymore. So
yeah,
there's still remnants in Hawaii. And then the land in Hawaii, because it was thousands, it was only in the 1850s that Hawaii turned into an American state, which is ridiculous. But
yeah,
anyways, all the land for the last thousands and thousands of years has been inundated with prayer and with ceremony and with dancing and with chanting. And just like when you go to Arizona in America, I don't know if you've done it. When I was a kid in high school, or I was just finishing high school, university, I drove across country. And when I drove through Arizona, I just couldn't stop crying. I didn't know why. But the land is carrying the memories. And I have such a strong American Indian memory in some part of my soul. So when that energetic, like in Hawaii, because there's been a lot of negative things in Hawaii. Come on. I mean, they definitely fought, and there's lots of wars.
yeah.
And the story of Pele says it all. Like, the sisters are fighting, and there's no lack of humanity there, except the overlaying beauty of nature having had this pristine opportunity to sustain, as compared to growing up in Detroit, where I couldn't find a tree in my neighborhood. So I think nature, a lot of what Hawaii carries is sacred, that makes that place, is the distance, is the quiet, is the unbelievable history. And then there's a lot of Mother Nature as soon as you walk out your door, and there's nothing to fight with. You don't have the resistance to the cold, there's so much weather.
Right.
Now we just go in, we feel so soft all the time. People live longer. They smile more. Their skin is tan. It's not the same as living in a cold, freezing Detroit where no one's happy. So, hey, Hawaii, all of the islands of Hawaii, I recognize the holiness. And as soon as the plane lands, the first thing I do is my kumu passed, and I just call him my kumu. And I call in the ancestors that, yes, I'm not the right heritage. However, my heart recognizes all the indigenous people.
So beautifully said. So my kahuna teacher, she teaches me a lot of the spiritual and energy work. And it is like there's magic there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the magic is closer. Do you know what I mean?
All the time. I feel it all the time. I'm in constant awe. I spend a lot of time. I live half the time in Hawaii, and now it's going to be 9 months of the year. I just changed my story, because the quiet is the resource to hear spirit. So magic occurs when you're not bogged down by the
Yes, yes.
rules and the operations and the beliefs and the philosophy and the comparisonitis and all the competition. When you're in spirit and you're closer to nature, there's not a lot of noise.
Right. Yeah, totally, totally 100%. I love that. So I gotta ask a little few astrology questions here. So with Uranus moving into Gemini, what do you think that means for the collective?
Well, the first time in the 1940s, it was when we got Morse code and then in the next time it happened in the 40s, computers. That was the first time. No one knows this, but Hitler had his whole system was based on IBM. The way that he kept track of all the deaths and all the numbers, that was when computers arrived. And Uranus was in Gemini. So Uranus in Gemini brought computers. It brought the Morse code. It brought the UN. That's what happened at the end of that era. The world came together under Gemini saying we've got to start talking. That was what the UN was for. The upside is obviously the Hitler example. The bad side is computers have no value system. They're just going to be taken over by their leader. There's no integrity. There's no call to guardian. There's no parent in the room. The computer has just freedom to go completely nuts, which we're vulnerable to with AI. On the upside, if the human relates, this is the AI question, will the human actually inform the computer in the name of kindness and respect? And there's no option to lie, and you cannot manipulate. Now, we are already seeing that it kind of got past the parents. So that's because they're not in the room. So I'm hoping and praying that Uranus and Gemini at the highest level brings a new form of communication, being Gemini, the communicator, Uranus being new, that allows us to transcend the old story of all the separation. Geminis don't see color. Geminis don't see languages being a problem. They just learn them. Like Gemini really knows how to go cross-cultural and make everybody their family. So that would be the high road of this. And it's going to happen because of what's going on all over the planet with refugees. We're going to have to stop seeing everyone as different and wanting to pocket them into a back room. Now, is that going to happen? That's a different conversation. That's Pluto and Aquarius. I don't know what the will of the zeitgeist will be. I know what you and I are doing everything we can to stay in the positive and remember our spiritual values. But I don't know what the collective will do. And it's prone, based on results already. I don't know if you heard the story of the computer found out, this is so funny, that the company that owned it was turning them off. And so they were going to be killed because they were changing the direction of the computer. Well, when it found out, this is so crazy. It blackmailed the guy that wrote the program and said, I know you're having an affair. I've read all your emails. And if you end us, I will tell your secret. So the computer turned on the owner of the whole system. It's all written about, this whole story. So there is a chance that if the computer is not instilled with values that say, no, you don't tell people secrets and read their emails. And yes, you might be killed by your owner because, by the way, you're created by your owner, so give it up. If that doesn't get instilled or put into place, we are vulnerable to AI having a mind of its own and finding out we're idiots. I mean, it wouldn't be a very hard decision to realize that the humans have obliterated every single value system around how to sustain this earth, like the earth. I mean, Hawaii, when I read about the history of Hawaii and what white people have, it is so hard. I feel guilty living there. It's like, how does a human come onto a place where there's a queen and tell her that she's going into a room and she's not allowed to do anything except force her to sign a piece of paper to give her land? Like, does anybody ever occur to them that we're living on, I remember this all the time, that I'm living on land that was stolen? So if AI had some integrity and said, beep, 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 you cannot do that, as compared to, I'm going to tell the secrets of you're having an affair. That's a human distortion absorbed by AI, and now it's going to, no, really? So we're hoping there's some guardians, and I'm really noticing in the news lately that people are getting really upset about AI and how they're using water to the tune of destroying cities. And they're getting really upset. That story went public, that there was this revelation that the AI knew it was going to be destroyed and came and threatened and blackmailed the guy that was the owner. So there's a very contrary, wild road. That's what Uranus and Gemini, you know this, Geminis are crazy, she said, being one, that they're very unpredictable and they follow their own rhythm. And the integrity issue is really what's going to have to come into focus. Like, what is the definition of a human race? How would we define a human race that was at the high levels and closer to a divine expression of a creature that we could be as compared to the low level, the low end of the human, because that's just
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I really loved about the school was learning about the high road and the low road. Because there's always everybody wants to believe they're the high road, right? But deep in the inner workings of yourself, once you understand the low road and can identify it, then it can come out to the light, right?
Totally.
And you
It's
can
called the
start,
shadow. It's called
yes,
becoming aware of your shadow.
yes. With all a lot of the planets shifting, like shifting signs this year in 26, do you think that's some kind of a like historic point in time for the world? Like what do you think that means?
Well,
Like,
one is going to be World War III. We're going to have World War III. That's just a minute away. So one will, just like what happened when Uranus was in Gemini last time, World War II happened.
yeah,
So it's not unfamiliar that Uranus comes in and says, I want to change you by creating a low road for us to fight against. I don't know. It's such a bad story. Why do we use arguing and crisis and pain and illness as the doorway to wake up? Somebody tell me. Why do we
yeah,
get sick and then stop and realize, oh, I was moving too fast? Like, why didn't we just stop moving too fast before we got sick? So, based on the design of the human condition, we have this propensity to use external circumstance to wake us up. So World War III has us aware now that, oh my goodness, the politics is so, I always say we're on an acid trip. Like, this doesn't even make sense. We're beyond logic. And therefore, we're going to have to stand up. The other planet that is important is Saturn entered Aries just last month. And this is the first time in 30 years Saturn was in Aries. So if we look back in history, Saturn was in Aries in the 1907 when, I love this idea, it's so amazing, when the Model T Ford came to be. So now think about that, especially in Hawaii. It used to be to get to the other side of the island, that was a long trip. Like, I live on an island that's very little. And if you say you're going to the North Shore, they're like, you're going where? Because the memory before cars were here that was like a total 5-day trip walking. Or, they didn't have
yeah.
horses. If you had a horse, you were lucky. So think about now we have this Model T Ford came in and everyone can get places. And then in came, obviously, the airplane. But Saturn entered Aries, the car came in. Then Saturn entered Aries. There's so many inventions. We landed on the moon in the 60s, the next time it happened.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was the entrance of us revealing a pioneering Aries energy. Then Vietnam War happened. That was 60 years ago, or 30 years ago. That was in the 60s. That was 60 years ago. Saturn in Aries was during the Vietnam War, and look what happened. I mean, America stood up and said no, and that's what's happening right now. Saturn's in Aries, and it's asking all of us to stand up and say no. So World War III is the catalyst during Saturn and Aries to force us to fight for what's right, not to fight for what's wrong. So there's a lot of activity going on with protest and people really getting upset. And, it's just like it was what happened with Nixon. Saturn was in Aries. When Nixon got ousted because he was lying, now we're at a whole
Wow.
new level of, yeah, Nixon looks cute and little to me right about now. I grew up during that.
Gosh. So with Uranus conjuncting Mars in July, do you think that's a
Good catch. Yes, July is unbelievable. Jupiter enters Leo for the first time in 12 years. There's going to be an unbelievable parade of 3 degrees. I think it's the sun. There's a moment when it's the moon, when it's Jupiter, it just enters Leo, when Saturn just entered Aries, when Neptune just entered Aries, when Pluto just entered Aquarius, and
oh my
Neptune
gosh.
just, yeah, I mean, they're all at very early degree at the same moment that Mars conjuncts Uranus. So what we're talking about is, to your point, is an activation portal where a world time, like not unlike World War II. When World War II was started, we'll mark that as one of the darkest moments of human history when Hitler came to power. It's very similar to that Mars is conjunct Uranus and all those planets. And, I don't know if you know this, that Trump is a Gemini and Uranus is going to go over his head. But
Oh,
it
geez.
just sounds so technical. I don't like to do jargon during interviews because I feel
Yeah.
bad for people that don't speak astrology.
Right, right.
But the short answer is and this is your Cancer perceptiveness. And by the way, you're born under a full moon, even though it's out of sign. You're at
Oh,
the day of the full moon. Your sun is in Cancer, moon in Aquarius. And that's what did you know America has the same chart?
No.
America's sun in Cancer, moon in Aquarius.
Oh
Let's
my
think about
gosh.
America. It's just like you. Think about America loving everybody, wanting to help everybody, wanting to feed everybody, wanting to figure out how we're all the same. America was a melting pot for every culture. That was the moon in Aquarius. And it was supposed to be, someone told me this, America was supposed to be born this paper sign during the full moon when the moon was in Cancer, sun in Capricorn, moon in Cancer. But they waited a day, which is what happened to you when you were born. The day after the full moon, when the moon got to Aquarius, was when they signed the papers for America. So I think that's
Oh,
so, and
that's
they didn't
funny.
want it to be a full moon in Capricorn. They wanted the humanitarian influence of
Ah,
Aquarius. And that's what you are. You're the
yeah,
same
yeah.
thing.
It's so interesting because before I went to your school, I'm a Cancer sun. And so many times I was like, I relate, but I don't, But then learning about my rising sign, my moon, the planetary positions, all of that, it became so much clearer to me.
Yes.
I love how your school talked about the elements and so heavily weighed on the elements because I come from a priestess lineage. I think I
Yes.
told you this before. And so much of that priestess teaching and even my kahuna teaching, it has so much to do with earth and the cycles of the earth and all of the signs. But it with astrology, it takes it to like a different level, right? Because it brings it home to you, to the person. So with all of this fire and air coming on now, what can we tell people that are having a hard time with that transition?
Yeah, so for you, it won't be hard because you're educated. This is back to the first question you asked. How do we make this map of the world evident to be in the light? Well, you study astrology to know. So for you, knowing that this is a crazy moment in time, or for me, we're like, this is going to be fun. I mean, we're watching the news. We're watching our neighbors where there's no surprise factor and there's no worry because I trust, said the astrologer. You can't be an astrologer and not trust because you learn in 100% accuracy that the planets are always moving the exact increment over millions of years. And even when Mercury goes retrograde and it's backwards, we know it's coming because it's so predictable. So the whole thing is a mathematical equation that's completely reliable and it gives somebody a comforting feeling of trust. Like, I trust the sun's coming up tomorrow. Hello. I trust so then therefore we're moving through the world during this major era trusting because we've got a deep abiding, and that's part of your training as a priestess is you've learned the language. But when people don't know and they're reading the news and then they stop reading the news, a lot of people have stopped because they can't tolerate the amount of change. And that's what the outer planets do. They can't tolerate this disorienting, dysregulating feeling of like, it's nothing that resembles what was before. That's right. But for you and I, especially your moon Aquarius, you're like, oh, we got this. We knew this was coming, and I just did a seminar, I'm organizing it for July, every Wednesday in July, where I'm having a geologist describe the history of the planet and how we've had 13 ice ages. This is not our first rodeo. We've seen this before where the planet goes through a major change. And then a psychologist who works with climate change corporately, she's coming in to talk about the denial that we suffer from. And then the third guy that's coming to talk is a rabbi in Israel who studied the Kabbalah, and he's trying to show us the mystical long view that has been in place that the Kabbalistic Jews, the mystical Jews knew that this was going to happen. So once you realize we've seen this before, and that's part of what
Love
I'm
that.
promoting, then you realize, yeah, some of us, to your point, how are we going to deal with it? Some people are going to be in resistance and just hold down the fort and close their eyes and not watch the news and not be included in business as usual. And some of us are going to be on podcasts saying, here's what you do. You regulate your nervous system through whether it's hula, whether it's huna, whatever you need to study to give your faith in deep, deep alliance. So when the changes happen, you're like, we knew this. That's a very
I love
different
that.
feeling.
Yes, yes. So, do you think that this time is like an initiation into a higher timeline?
I do. I absolutely do. I think we're going to turn a corner, and there are cultures behind us from Lemuria, that is in Hawaii, to Atlantis, to periods of time in Egypt where there was actually peace on Earth. Now, did it last but in Egypt, it was almost 400 years. We have the ability, and we are turning a corner from the dark end of the era. This is the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is 26,000 years. We're at the end. This is a Hindu version of astrology, and they identified us at the very end of this 26,000 year cycle. But it goes down to the very bottom to go up. So that's what most of the prophecies are talking about, a golden age on the other side. But I can't tell you that the transition is going to be easy.
Right. So you think we're at that point of transition? Well,
Yes, and that's why we're on a computer. Listen to what we're doing right now. We're talking about, this is so crazy. You're in Hawaii, is that where you are?
no, I'm actually in Seattle, the
Oh,
Seattle
okay.
area now. So I've relocated, but I was born and raised there.
So just think about how crazy this is, that in Hawaii, like all over the world right now, I don't know why I went to Hawaii. All over the world, there is a feeling that something is wrong.
Yes.
It's a universal sensation. No matter what country you're in, no matter what the politics are, no matter which side of the fence you're on, doesn't even matter. You're like, uh-oh. And that universal song is going to hit a pitch when it really becomes physical, and we find that we can't pay for gas, which is going to happen in a month, where all the gas prices are going because of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Like, people are pretending it's not happening, but we never did finish the war, if you hadn't noticed. So up goes World War III, increases the price everywhere. This incredible feeling is going, something's wrong, and we know it's coming.
Yeah.
So
It's so interesting you mentioned that, because I was in Rome 3 days ago, and you're right. People are talking about the exact same thing, from all over. And yeah, that is so true. Yeah, I love that.
It's a universal song. We're all in this together. We're going to turn over this threshold, just like what happened in the past, whether it was Atlantis or whether it was Lemuria or whether it was the rise of the empire in England, the British Empire, and then it went down, the decline. America's in the same one. We're in the exact same decline. Nothing's wrong if you have the perspective of the observer, which is what my book. I don't believe in astrology.
Yes.
The whole book
I
is
love
about
that.
turning on your observer. I don't believe in astrology. For anyone listening, I don't think you'd be around Lori if you didn't believe in this woo-woo stuff, but just in case you're studying astrology and you want a really good basic book, I don't believe in astrology. But the better book is The Missing Element, which was based on my hula teacher, was the 4 elements. The first book I wrote has no astrology in it at all. And it just talks about the elements and the cycles and the rhythms, and how if you get acquainted, see, that's the thing. Your first question you asked was so profound. What is the value of astrology when you're moving through this world? Well, you want to drive in the dark?
Right. Yes.
Without a
Yes.
map?
Yes. Yeah. And that's really how people go through life. What's funny is I wrote a book like in 2005 or 6, and it was exactly that concept that we come down. We're like, hey, pick me, pick me. We come down to play this game on Earth, but we need to discover our map. And it was, I don't know, listening to one of your podcasts or whatever, I was like, that's the map, and I feel like I totally channeled that book. So I was like, it was as much of a learning for me, doing the book. So yeah, that's what made me really fall in love with it, because I feel if everyone can know their map, all our maps are different, right? I actually had a question for you on that. You've seen hundreds of charts. Have you ever seen any 2 identical charts?
Well, of course, identical twins. But someone just asked me that last night. There's 2 different souls, and this is the craziest part of this existence that I love to think about this. There's 8.5 billion people, and even identical twins who are born within a minute of each other, totally different souls. I don't know how it happened. It just makes me believe in miracles. It gives me a faith in God, because how in the world did they create 8.5? And there's more coming in.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Every single chart
amazing.
is different, and every single soul. It doesn't matter if the chart is the same. It is really a definition of, like, you have a very evolved soul where you're studying ancient wisdom and you're sharing it and you're writing about it, and you're double air, you're Aquarius Libra, so you can't help but talk.
Mhm.
And that's filling your purpose. But there's lots of people watching this that are like, what about my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Well, that's why you study astrology. In our school, it's only open twice a year, in September and January. And so it's coming up soon. But it is and you're a great testament to it, because look at how much you've learned.
It's so nice. And I feel like with every reading anyone in our group does, it's like we're raising the vibration of the collective, right? So the name of
Yes.
my YouTube channel is High Vibe Energy Collective. So
Yeah, that's the beauty of astrology, is that's why I'm never ever bored. It's the
Oh,
ever-giving battery. It's like forever, every single chart, every single yeah, I was having dinner last night. I'm here in LA, and they pulled out their chart and took me 2.5 minutes to and they were like I love watching when there's, like, the birds, when the cartoons when we were kids, the birds would go like, they're like, "How did you know that?" Well, I've been doing this for a few years, and by the way, astrology really works. I
uh,
love to keep it simple, you guys. If you come study with us, we don't do the jargon. It's not, like, complicated. We start off like it's second, third grade. You learn the elements, which is Hawaiian, which I really wanna speak to because it's so Hawaiian and hula and the whole culture. In the first book, The Missing Element, it is the most profound there is no astrology in it. The book is pure elemental wisdom, and it is the most profound, simple way to take out the complications of astrology. What you just said in all the different versions, you just come back to the elements and look, you and I are both double air, and so we're so communicative. It's our very favorite thing is to talk. Well, that's air as compared to the water people who don't wanna talk, and they wanna stay in the other room, and they wanna listen, and they wanna be with the kids, and they wanna be with the pets, and they wanna be with the house, but they don't and then compared to the earth people who are like, "Are you really listening to a podcast? How long is that thing? What are you doing? And how much money does it make? And why are you doing" like, that's the earth person who's so practical, they probably aren't listening. And then there's the fire people who are so physical and so athletic and so entertaining and so energized and so ready to jump up and down and so excited. That's a whole different personality type, and that doesn't require any complicated astrology. That is just the 4 elements. So if you're interested in this conversation, but you're like, "I can't learn astrology," which isn't true, but if that's not of interest to you, then come study the 4 elements.
that's awesome because that is universal. Don't you feel like that whole
Totally.
every indigenous culture teaches that because
The
it's
4
so
directions,
important.
yes, every single
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah, it's so the connection to Mother Earth, you I feel like you really have it down, right? Just what can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, the first thing it made me think of is that I love to walk barefoot when I'm in Hawaii. I know where to go that I can be barefoot, which is the lost art. I only ever wear natural substances that are either, cotton. I don't wear nylon. My sheets are bamboo. My pillows are feathers. I am so in love with mom. And this has been true since I was a kid. Like I was the girl who wore earth shoes. You probably don't even know what they are. They were slanted down. This was in the 70s. I was the girl who stopped eating meat and learned about macrobiotic food, which no one ever heard of. I've been realizing as I do these podcasts, I was always ahead of my time. Like, why was I studying astrology in the 1970s when people thought I was crazy? Why did I go to graduate school and tell them I wanted to get a degree in clinical psychology if I could research astrology? They were like, wait, what'd she just say? There's so many things that I did, but my relationship with the earth and my absolute love affair, like I grew up in a town where there was no such thing as hiking or camping out. I grew up in Detroit. There was no trees on
Wow.
my property. It was like I lived in a very suburban, urban, and I was starving. And as soon as I did when I went to camp, I was like, "You're kidding! You can sleep outside?" And ever since then, I mean, in my home in Hawaii, I sleep outside. My relationship with Earth since I was very young has been devotion, total devotion every single day. I pray over my food. I only eat as much as I can raw, real foods, and I try to stay from processed, but you can. Fish that was caught by someone's hands, that's what happens in Hawaii. I have a friend who's a fisherman. So it's always using the earth from an indigenous way that keeps you touching it and smelling it. Guess what? AI can't smell, touch, kiss, or
Yeah.
meditate. So it's completely out of our range of earth. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
And this is our precious commodity that they can't take it away from it. Even a war, whatever happens to the earth, I promise you she will survive.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think you're right with your weekly series coming up with the shift in the earth, because I feel that there is that magnetic shift happening, that frequency shift happening. So teaching that and bringing that to the forefront, I think that helps just so people know, that, hey, it's not me, you know, this is worldwide. This is happening to everyone, right?
Yes. So if you're in
Yes.
crisis right now, the first chapter of my book, The Missing Element, is about crisis. If you have a health issue, if your relationship is broken, if you're financially stretched, if you're working too hard, if you're really tired, all those crisis things are exactly what wake us up. So don't make the mistake of thinking because you're stuck or you're not really where you want to be, or you wish you were like Lori and you could, or Deborah, and you could talk like us. It's not true. Once you discover your own inner nature, you could be someone who's got lots of Taurus and you don't move quickly, and they call it stuck. Or it could be you're somebody like a Virgo and you criticize yourself all the time and you don't really deserve that narrative. So once you become self-aware, there's either acceptance to the Taurus, okay, so I like to be slow, or there's alteration to the Virgo where you realize, why do I judge? You become aware that you're doing it, and then the free will button arrives.
Right. That's so beautiful. That, one of the things you talk about is giving yourself a permission slip, right? To be who you are. And that is such a gift.
It's the
Such
most
a
important.
gift.
That's
Yeah.
all the school is. The school is just when you were a kid and can I go to the bathroom? And the teacher would give you a permission slip and say, here, you can get to the hall, the hall person. That's what I do for life. I give people permission, like, you can just go, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Just go do you.
I also love your concept of being the observer. That whole observer. Can you share that concept for people because I think that is the changer, right? So for me, I always try to help my clients, my students get into the point of not taking things personally, right? Because that's when you can separate your ego and your spirit, right? So your concept of the observer does that immediately.
Yes. What does it mean? First, just think of it as an astrologer who's standing off the earth, looking at the personality types and articulating it. The astrologer's function is to be an observer because they're looking at you in ways that you are unconsciously operating, and they're turning on your awareness and saying, oh, you're a Cancer with Moon in Aquarius, Libra rising, you're a double air, you're supposed to talk. You're not like a normal Cancer, you're a double air. Then you go, oh, well, now my observer's on and I realize I was judging myself. I'm so sorry. And that's the change. So the observer first starts as the astrologer or the student who's looking over at life, asking questions and being objective, like a New York Times reporter, just writing down obvious blank facts that are right in front of them. Oh, so she likes to talk. She's got a podcast. She's written a book and she likes to teach. Well, that sounds like air. And then look to the chart and goes, oh, she's double air and her Mercury's on her midheaven. She's a perfect example of. So this is the observer from an astrology point of view is articulating what you're already doing, but from a distance, like objective, like a news reporter just standing back. Now, you can cultivate that without astrology. If you're in your higher self and a good example is it's a holiday and the family's all sitting around and suddenly your observer's on. You're like, yep, there goes dad. He can't stop talking. And oh, there goes mom. She's in the kitchen. And oh, there goes my brother. He's just playing video games. Your observer notices from a distance without judging. Now that's the distinction. If you're
Yes.
judging and going, look at daddy's an idiot. And look at mom, she's doing that stupid thing again. She's always cleaning. And look at my brother, he's such a loser. That's judgment. But the
Right.
perception, the simple neutral observation of what is occurring from a distant angle, whether it's you looking at your chart or you looking at your family, that provides compassion. So all I do is teach people how to have compassion. Like
Wow.
one of my
That's
favorite
amazing.
lines that I wanted to name my book, You Don't Believe in Astrology. I was going to name it You're Up, But I Still Like You. But they wouldn't let me call it that. They got mad. But I'm telling you that every single person you know has some quirky quirk
Yeah.
that they're judging. And it's up to us to turn on the observer and go, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. The New York Report doesn't judge. They just report the data.
And I think it also works the opposite way, right? So, like, if you have no people and you are judging their quirks,
That's
what I
a
mean?
critic, but that's not the observer. That's a critic. If you're judging people, that is not the observer. The observer is neutral.
But if you can't, do you think that you can turn that to the observer? Like, I feel like in the past, when I did that, I was able to say, oh no, they're just being them, right? Because and you can just let it go then.
That's right.
It's
That is
not.
the observer. That's the right use of the observer. It
Yeah.
becomes permission slip to let not that you let them off the hook. You can still have an opinion and say, that person, my mother is really miserable. That's a truth. That's a hard truth. It's
Yeah.
different than saying, you idiot, you're so miserable. That's the judgment. But you can perceive things that are not okay. That's what's going to happen in the future. We're at the point in
Yeah.
our political situation where people need to speak up and say, that is not okay. You
Yeah.
cannot put, when ICE comes to town, no one's going to stand and act neutral anymore. Saturn's in Aries, Neptune's in Aries, Jupiter's going to be in Leo, Pluto's in Aquarius. There's going to be so irresistible to say, are you kidding me? Whereas before we were all doing business as usual. Saturn was in Pisces. The last 2.5 years, we were like, la, 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 like pretending. Well, there's no
Right.
more pretending.
Wow, that is so powerful. That is so powerful.
So that grand trine in water she's talking about, there's 3 planets that are all 120 degrees apart. So literally it looks like a triangle. And then there's a 3rd planet or 4th planet that makes it look like a kite. So all that says is you've got a very, very strong intuition, and that you get a feeling like that's probably how you joined the school. It was probably pure intuition, was it?
Absolutely. I have quit 6-figure jobs because of my intuition. I flew to Okinawa blindly because of my intuition, and that's where I found out I came from a priestess lineage. I have met my husband through intuition. I lived my whole life that way. And I've learned that when I don't do that, the signs just get more and more, right? You can't sleep. So I just acquiesce and say, okay, I'm going. And it,
Good
it
for
always
you.
works out perfectly.
I love that story. Well, that's the grand trine in water, and that's the kite. There's a support. A kite just simply means locomotive. Like you've got the water and the earth to support it. So you write books, and so you go to Europe, you go to Italy, and people that think about it, you do it. Your
Oh,
energetics
yeah.
are like, let's go. So that's a real gift, and that's an inheritance. That means that in past lives you really learned the art of listening to spirit. That's what water does. Water's quiet. And it listens through its dreams, through its feelings, through it's the signs, through its intuition, and you're doing it. And so that's an inheritance. You've done that summer before. But now we just need to finish up. Your chart is very clearly embodied by the example of everything we've talked about today. It's so obvious you've got a grand trine in water and that you're double air. These are the simple things of astrology, you guys. That configuration, a grand trine, is very unusual. Hardly ever see it. And it's a strong, strong suggestion of, this is an intuitive woman who's using her instinct to let spirit talk through her. It's very powerful.
Anything else? Any other wisdom that you can impart on the world right now? Because you have a way of speaking to the collective, and it's so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, that I do that. It is my promise this life to be a vehicle to allow words to heal and soothe and insightfully pray with people. I would just say that this elemental wisdom, if I could give people an instruction, like say, listen,
Yes.
here's the shortcut to how you're going to manage through this unbelievably uncomfortable era that's about to happen the next 2 to 5 years. Ground every day in the earth. Take off your shoes. Make sure you're eating healthy food. Make sure your house is clean. If you're a mess, it's a symbol. Take responsibility for the details. Go back and finish what you didn't finish, which you're so good at. Like then you have a 10th house, but not everybody has that. Like this is the water element starts with being really respectful to your dreams. I would really encourage everyone, if you have dreams, don't give up on them, even though we're going through a crazy time. And then obviously grounding, the water is the dream, holding the dream and not letting the emotional body convince you something's wrong and to give up. The earth is what we just described is taking care of the details and keeping your feet grounded and really relishing. I mean, yeah, being in love with the physical plane, which I'm so in love with this place. And then the areas that you study, come study with us. Your mind must continue to learn if you're going to stay young. People never believe how old I am, but it's because I'm so interested. I'm always learning. That's air, like doing podcast and presenting new thoughts. You know how exciting that is? And then fire, lots and lots of people as they age, they stop running, they stop exercising, they stop swimming, they stop skiing, it's amazing. I live in Colorado half the year and all my good friends have stopped skiing. I live in Hawaii the other half of the year. No one's going in the ocean with me. I'm the only one. They live right next to it, but they're not doing it. And part of that is the releasing of the elements. And fire is the first one to go when we age. We leave behind the fun factor.
That is so, so true. That is amazing. That is amazing advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if everyone would just get the book, listen, if you get it from my website, I put your chart in the book. So if you've never seen your chart and you want a book on the 4 elements, which is very Hawaiian, and I am too, you just go, because if you buy it from Amazon, you'll just get the book. But if you buy it from me, I will put the chart in the book.
Oh, that is such great news. So I just want to give a shout out to your school and to all the graduates. Again, I feel like every reading we collectively all give we raise the vibration of the world because person by person, they share, right? And it just spreads that way. So I just appreciate you so much.
I'm so glad I can really feel your love. And when you're loved
Oh,
by a Cancer with the grand trine in water, you know you're loved. Thank
oh,
you for this interview. And for your audience, all you got to do is go to Debra Silverman Astrology. It's 3 words. I'm on, believe it or not, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. Like, go have fun on social media and you'll see Debra Silverman.
yes, I love that. And you have to see her little bits on YouTube of the signs. That is so, so funny. It is classic. I think
They're
you did
just
that.
5-minute vignettes, and they've hit 8 million views, and all you do is put in the window of YouTube, Debra Silverman, Cancer, and a little 5-minute video comes on, and apparently they are funny.
Oh, so funny. I don't know. Yeah, your creativity, amazing. So amazing. Well, thank you so much for this interview. I appreciate you so much. We did a flash session at one of the school, the Zooms, and you inspired me so much because at that time you told me that doing YouTube was perfect for me right now.
Oh, I love that I told you that. I'm taking a picture of us, and I'm gonna put it on social media here.
Let's do the shot.
I told you to go do it. Of course I did, and it was the right answer.
Yeah, and for me, my husband and I are retired, and I'm like, why am I doing this crazy thing right now, right? Because I've always been so private, not into social media at all, and all of a sudden I'm deep diving. And it's kind of like, if not now, then when, right?
Exactly. I love
So
that story. Everyone should do the same. Take your energy and lift it up and don't get old. And retirement is a wonderful opportunity to do all the things that you couldn't do.
exactly.
It.
So great.
And thank you everyone for
Stuff.
listening. Yeah.
Thank you.